Welcome to the Trauma Resonance Resilience podcast. My name's Lisa Cherry, and I am here today with Nikki for our final episode of our three-part series, which has been really about two friends really reflecting on both getting cancer, very different cancers, but just reflecting on that experience. And if you haven't listened to part one or part two, then please head back into your podcasts and listen to those, because I think that doing it in three parts, each episode will make more sense if you listen to them all. So good morning, Nikki.
Good morning. Emphasis on the word good today.
Yeah, and the sun's shining.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing, because it's been a bit of a challenge for the sun in these last these last few weeks. It kind of comes out, then it's like, no, I'm not staying, and then it goes, and then it comes, then it goes, then it comes. And I'm not sure we're out of that kind of cycle yet, but I think it's going to have just a little bit more consistency, which is nice.
Yeah, it is nice. And us Brits do love to talk about the weather. We
We
just do.
really do.
I don't
We
know
really
what
do.
it is, but we do.
It's an obsession. But listen, today, so part one, we looked at finding the beauty in cancer. Slightly uncomfortable title that we changed from an even more uncomfortable title. And then in part two, oh, excuse me. Oh, in part two, we really looked at navigating, nurturing ourselves and what that looks like from our perspectives. I mean, hey, we're only
Yeah.
coming from our own perspectives. And today we thought we'd look at endings and beginnings, and we'd go a little bit more deeply into this experience, this bizarre, strange, confronting, challenging, deep experience that is cancer. And if we use the umbrella term cancer, it's thinking about diagnosis, treatment. I'm not even close to being on the other side of all my treatments. You are on the other side of your treatments. But cancer as an umbrella term for the entirety of that experience rather than specific cancers. So, endings and beginnings, where do we begin?
With an end, an understanding that you can't have one without the other. They coexist completely together. And can I just say it's fascinating, because not only is today the summer solstice, a day of balance, and the winter solstice in the Northern Hemisphere. So it is a day of balance, longest day, shortest day, beginnings, endings, a complete day of transition. And how perfect that we start Cancer season today. Is it today or
Wow.
yesterday? It might be yesterday, actually. And I did have a wry smile to myself astrologically, because some of you will know that that is a guiding light for me. I very much believe in as above, so below. And I was really keen to go there because the umbrella of fear. Let's talk about fear.
Mm.
This fear is a driver of human behavior. It is a signpost that we often follow subconsciously without even realizing that that is the direction we're going in. And the driver is fear, nothing else. And everything really is driven by perhaps the fear of endings. We don't celebrate endings in the same way that we celebrate beginnings. We just don't.
We really don't.
But the concept of understanding that it's a law of nature, there has to be one with the other. And I'm seeing so many people, particularly in this time, the planet is going through transition. We are ending a whole paradigm of behavior and transitioning. So if you like, we're kind of at baby toddler stage at the moment. We are all maturing as as we get to, but just to break it down into the now, we've got summer, longest day. We're at the height of transitioning towards the next half of this year. And who knows what that will hold. But as we said yesterday, you know, what is for you will never pass by you. And I think both you and I have really chosen to own that, whereby sometimes we can feel that life is happening to us rather than through us. When we start to explore the other concept that it happens through us, we can really take massive steps forward. And the endings become a new focus for a beginning. And what do we want that to look like? And even when somebody literally passes, when I say, you know, this too shall pass, we all will pass at some stage. And things do pass. We are energy in motion. We're just going to keep moving, as does the planet. And for me, that's what connection is.
And cancer, I'm sort of thinking about cancer as a teacher and as a teacher of endings
And
and
managing those.
managing those.
Mhm.
And I know, I mean, again, I can only speak from my experience, but at the beginning, when it all first happened, and I was in agony, and I'll never forget. I won't ever forget what that was like, to be in that much pain. I just thought, if this is the way things are, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this.
Mm.
And I think it's important to say that, because I think throughout these conversations, there's been this sense of, well, owning the experience, learning from the experience, having that kind of worldview about the experience. But that was a journey as well to get to that place, and feel connected with the life force of it. Took a good while, and actually took the medical model of removing the pain, which is what happened. That didn't come from my view on life, my perspective on life. It came from medication, chemotherapy, and for which I'm so grateful for. But when we say the word cancer, it usually, the first thing that people think about is death.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
Will that be the ending?
yeah,
And will that
it's
be
it.
the story of my journey? And is that or is that the the beginning of understanding how to live?
But I mean, look, absolutely. You hear that from people all the time. I really started to, understand that life is short, that I have to live every day as if it's my last, all of those kind of things.
Have you felt that?
I've lived like that for years,
Mm.
um, because of different experiences I've had.
Yeah, an early
Having,
childhood.
yeah, and through get recovery, in my very early 20s. Um, having said that, having said that, I really understand and have understood for years that you live every day as if it's your last, and you just embrace and enjoy. And, my thirst for life is unquenchable. I love life. I love it. The shit of it, the beauty of it, the coldness, the warmth. I just love life. Um, Even in that kind of mindset, cancer just takes that to another level. So even coming from that place, cancer has deepened it. But if you weren't coming from that place, and cancer's the first time you're feeling it, that must be like amazing. to just fully go, I'm just not living. I'm not doing that job anymore. I'm not being with that person anymore. I'm not taking that crap anymore. I've only, my time here is limited. I get it now. I'm going to live now. I'm going to live. I'm going
And
to
that's
live
the
life.
beginning.
Yeah.
That's the beginning. These minutiae of choices, and I mean, this is can be, obviously they can be big, but perhaps it addresses what that looks like. I mean, let's face it, we just want life to be great and wonderful and joyous and, exactly the way we want it to be. That's our expectation. And we spend all our life creating what feels comfortable.
Yeah. I mean,
Sometimes we're led out of that comfort zone. It's essential that we get led out of that comfort zone. Where's the fun in just comfort all the time? It's why people, chase adrenaline sports. It's why, because it's inspirational. We breathe more deeply when we have to come out of um, shock and trauma. The one thing that's going to take us back is the breath. And yet the ultimate ending of death takes that breath away.
mm,
And I love that. What is it that takes your breath away? And perhaps that's the circle that takes you from death to living. Go
Nikki,
there.
I think you should say all of that again, just in case anyone missed it, because I think that's beautiful. You know, Go on, say it again. Now
Sure.
you're going, how did I say it? How did I? You talked about our last breath and
Yes.
that we
So
should
take
do what
yes.
takes our breath away.
Yes, and the breath is what keeps us living. It's what keeps our physical body living. And when we go into shock, sometimes we go, we literally inspire more because we want to, our body and our soul is craving that inspiration. And if we just stay in the comfort zone and we never give ourselves that inspiration, perhaps by getting out of the comfort zone, I don't believe we can be living with that huge inspiration, and that is deep breath. The things that take your breath away, what are they? So go there every day, try and go there to something that perhaps takes your breath away.
I mean, again, I would like to think I've always lived like that. I push, 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 push all the time. Um, in business, in travel, I'm always out of my comfort zone as much as possible. Um, but even in that context, cancer adds something to that. Because what I've also found is that I'm less like that while I'm going through this, which has been really interesting to me.
Yeah.
I want to be much more at home. I want my comforts more.
But that's very Cancer.
Yeah,
Literally, the astrological sign of Cancer is the home
it's
and the
home,
mother.
mothering.
And we
Yeah.
are right in this basin of mothering love now and how we give it to ourselves and all those qualities of mothering. And it does also reflect back into how you mother. And talking of beginnings and endings, when do you stop becoming a child?
Mm.
And what is that point of beginning? And it's so interesting, isn't it? And
Well, I'm not sure there is a beginning and an end because that's a circle, my lovely,
it,
isn't
it
it?
is. Yeah,
That's
it
the
is.
circle. It's not a linear thing that it
Yeah.
starts and it ends, it starts and it ends. And I guess part of thinking about endings and beginnings is moving into cyclical thinking, isn't it? And
Yeah.
thinking about cycles and
Yeah.
seasons and what came before and what comes after, an ancestral lineage that continues, and it's all of that, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And it's the flow of life, isn't it? And the control that we all have as human beings to keep us safe,
Mm.
which is really worth exploring. What
Yeah.
what what does safety mean to you? To one, and it's such a big question, but it is really worth exploring. And how do we validate ourselves externally that in our imagination keep us safe from what? Beginnings and endings.
I mean, anyone listening who is familiar with my work knows that safety is something that we'll talk about really quite early on. in any training or speaking or anything that I do. You know, safety is everything, because that's our central nervous system, and ensuring that we have that, what we talked about yesterday, that homeostasis, that calmness, that rest and digest, that ability to have a stillness and to heal any residue from early trauma or trauma where we have not, where that rest and digest system has been really interrupted, damaged, messed about with, or wired up in lots of stress and duress.
And for me, I have one word: connection.
Yeah. Another of my favorite words.
Yeah. It is deeply about connection to
Self.
ourselves.
Yeah.
100%. And only when, the more we go deeper into the connection to ourselves, the more the rest of the world creates a sense of connection. And that is wrapped up in connection to nature, connection to the earth, connecting to our breath. Those are, going back yesterday to nurturing, those are the self-care tools. It's just one word: it's connection. In every way you look, you could bring it back to that.
Now, because we know each other, both of us have just coughed, which suggested to me that perhaps there's something we're not saying. And I'm curious about
Okay.
what we're not saying that we might want to say when we're talking about beginnings and endings in relation to cancer. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sensing that. I just had to switch off my phone. Sorry, rude. It was interrupting. Yeah, I'm not sure. I feel really comfortable with um my own beginnings and endings. For sure, the sadness would be with my children. That I'm a mother. That for me personally is one of the deepest connections I have in my life is to my children.
Of course. Yeah.
And
Found, isn't it?
yeah, and that if for me would be that would be the challenge of being told, I suppose, but equally that would be the beginning of maybe a fight that I would then say, look, I'm absolutely not having this. It's such an interesting concept. I have no idea is the truth as to how I would react.
If you were told
If
that
I
you
was
were going to
told,
die,
yes,
yes,
if I was told I was going to die and this was
say it.
terminal,
Yes.
yeah, 100%. But my view on death, I started out my training and entering into this whole concept of spirituality and awakening and all that sort of thing, was a very traumatic car crash. It was the biggest beginning and ending at that point, although the minutiae of other things, obviously, but that was a massive new beginning. And the new beginning was my psychic senses bursted open and I had the ability to speak to those who'd passed over. So I trained to manage my mediumship skills. And that was a very strange new beginning for me. Who could have known that that is where I would go? So my understanding of death is that we do not disappear. And
Mm.
that feels very comfortable for me. It sits really, really well with me. I'm a huge believer in the afterlife. I give evidence of people who are in spirit who I've never met before all the time. And if that is uncomfortable for some, it's just my own personal experience. And I did not, well, maybe on a deep level, I chose it, but I didn't consciously choose, oh, I'd really like to explore mediumship and everything else. It literally came to me and it was almost non-negotiable.
Mm. It's fascinating. I mean, it's not a view I share.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that you landed in that without knowing that was going to happen, or that that
Yeah.
was something that you were going to do. I think that's fascinating. And I guess that's an invitation for people, really, to be open to what a cancer diagnosis might bring you in terms of what that beginning might look like, because it could be something really unexpected. It could be something you've never even thought of before, but just being open to the potential and open to opportunities that, because your life has changed now, because let's face it, if you have cancer, your life has changed in some way. Your worldview has changed in some way. Your body has changed in some way. You have changed. And it's having that openness to what might come that has the potential to make a really unpleasant, difficult, challenging, confronting experience something a bit more meaningful and beautiful and connecting.
Yeah.
And I think something else that I wanted to just talk about was around how we leave, how we die. And I know that when I thought I was going to die, I said to you, will you be the person who is with me when I die?
Yeah.
And I used your language, which was passes me over or whatever it was. I think that's the term. And even though I don't think I'm going anywhere in that sense, I wanted you to take me to this place, wherever that was, because I knew that you would hold what was going on for me and hold me in your worldview, which is that I'm going to be fine and I'm safe and I'm going somewhere beautiful. Even if that isn't my worldview, it was irrelevant because it's yours. That would alter the way you were around me. And you, of course, said, yes, I'd love to, because you've done that for people, haven't you? And you've done that with somebody with ease, and you've done that with someone kicking and screaming, if I recall.
Yeah.
And I'm really interested in those two experiences.
Um, yes and yes. um, Again, you know what's fascinating is I did not intend to at all. Something takes me there. And sometimes I just think that's exactly why I had experienced what I had to experience. And who knows where. And I have found that experience of the shock and the trauma was the accident. You know, that was like here one minute, gone the next. That's a very different, I mean, it can be a very different experience to somebody passing with cancer. Um, but I had a girlfriend about a year ago, and she was an incredible healer and very, very psychic and did a lot of amazing work in the world. And I was just very drawn. I'm very close to her sister. And the day that we both kind of knew that the time was very, very close. And beautifully, she'd got married the day before in hospital. And her sister called me and said, look, I think the time is close. And I said, okay. And I was going to a movie with a girlfriend that afternoon. And I thought, do I, don't I, do I, don't I? And the voice inside me said, yes, go, but then go to the hospital. And I'm not family. And I just knew that I had to go to the hospital. I wanted to go to say goodbye, and to say my words of love and, um, express my feelings. And when I got there, she was absolutely up to the hilt in morphine. So she was pretty much asleep. And her partner was there, and we just sat and chatted. And it was the most beautiful experience ever, 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 ever. Um, and it was so peaceful. And maybe you're right. Maybe because of my connection to spirit, or what I've been led to, what has opened up in my life, brings a sense of peace that very few other things do for me. You know, there are a lot of things in life that rile me. There are a lot of things there are a lot of things that, trigger, but there is something about sitting with somebody dying, or when I do any of my healing work or sound work or anything, I seem to just go into a space that I'm so comfortable in. And I think for all of us, when we're with somebody that feels comfortable to us, and that's not for everybody. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. There is something that creates a space. It's not my space, it's your space. But whatever it is that you feel at that time is perhaps the same that I'm feeling. And I feel incredibly calm and safe and connected, knowing that there is something so much bigger that takes over. And on both occasions, for me, when I had the accident or when, I got this diagnosis, there was just something bigger behind it. For me, that's my, yeah, that's my directive, is there is something a lot bigger that is in charge here. I have a very important part in that, but I'm not in control of it. 100% not. That's how I feel about it. And
Mm,
so it gives me the opportunity to go into that nugget within me that is connected to that bigger power. And when I do that, that's when I feel powerful in a way.
mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Um, and I really hope that there is some, something within our conversation that is helpful for people who are going through this and who are, maybe even exploring their relationship with death for the first time, maybe thinking about beginnings and endings for the first time, maybe feeling truly alive for the first time. I just hope that the conversations that we've had have offered some nuggets for people that have been helpful, and maybe think about things in a slightly different way, or even be really angry with us because we are thinking about things in ways that, just sound completely off the wall or whatever. I
And
just hope
that's
it's
okay. That's
exactly,
absolutely okay.
it's just, having a moment to spend some time reflecting for yourself
Yeah.
what is right for you and what works for you and what you can add or take away from these conversations that we've had. If you haven't listened to the other episodes, please do. I'm not sure how I would feel about you arriving into endings and beginnings. In my mind, I'd much rather you arrive into episode 1, then episode 2, and then here we are doing endings and beginnings in
Because
episode.
that's the natural order, right? But I really hope some people land on this and maybe,
Yeah, yeah,
you know what I mean? It's
yeah.
that's the beauty, isn't it? And it's,
Yeah, yeah. It's been really lovely
yeah,
kind of
thank you.
publicly having
Yeah,
some conversations around this. And in the notes on your podcast, you'll find how to connect with Nikki, if you want to, if some stuff's really resonated. And thank you so much for listening. So thank you, Nikki.
lovely. So good to see you.